What parents face today? Parents must come to understand that their children need a double education, a professional education as well as a spiritual training. Once, when I was in California in the US, I happened to meet a senior Indian immigrant with whom I had a conversation about education. I remarked that it was the age of education and that the greatest need of our generation was to be educated to the highest standard. But my interlocutor said that their experience in this field had been very disappointing. He wanted to introduce young people to higher learning, but the result dashed his hopes. He said what was needed now was a reconditioning of minds rather than learning. I said the fault lay with the parents. For the parents, there were only two options: either accept whatever was going to become of their children, or try to understand them and address their minds in such a way what was required of them is also made clear to them. This is seen in every country. Parents, having failed to understand their children's mind, go on complaining about them. It is of course possible to change your children's way of thinking, but you must first be endowed with the intellectual ability to address the minds of educated children. The fact is that in our present society, the majority of the parents are traditional minded, but they want to educate their offsprings in modern educational institutions. This requires an approach which can take in the blend of traditional and the modern. And then the parents, rather than giving up on their traditional thinking, should redefine it in order to make it more understandable to the new generation. It is this failure that has created the problem of children's resistance. So any shortcoming in the sphere of education is the parents' fault. It is not so much a question of reconditioning of the mind as it is a question of self-training. If parents want to bring about a change of attitude in their children, they must prepare themselves to be good counselors. Another problem is pampering. Parents have great affection for their children, and this often leads to pampering them. While affection is good, pampering is bad. Pampering fosters an easygoing nature in children. And that is the worst kind of nature for any person to be in this world of harsh realities. Pampered children do not heed advice. They know nothing but their own desires. Harsh realities have no place in their dictionary. Therefore, a pampered child cannot meet the challenges of the external world. Once I met two Indian boys, both graduates, who said they found themselves in very difficult circumstances. When they were home, they were under the protection of their parents, who were always ready to provide anything that they wanted. But when they left their homes to find a place in the world, they understood that the world was quite different. Everything had its price in terms of hard work, adjustment, acceptance of reality. And they really had to prove their abilities and to make sacrifices and compromises. They concluded at home they had not been trained to meet such challenges. Parents must come to understand that their children need a double education, a professional education as well as spiritual training. The former kind of education is in institutions, but the center of the latter kind is in the home, and parents are teachers in this home institute. But parents must realize that the language of do's and don'ts will not serve the purpose. They must prepare themselves for a more sensitive and a complex approach. Indeed, they must ground themselves in what may be called rational spirituality.